Today's an exciting day. Our topic is The Universe Works For Me by Working Through Me. And Mark started us off beautifully, and the conversations have weaved themselves into this idea, which is actually almost a quote from Ernest Holmes. He wrote, "The universe works for you by working through you." And we just changed it to the me because I can't tell you what you have to do. I can know for myself how life works, and you get to know for yourself how life works for you. For me, the greatest high in life we can possibly achieve is to know with absolute certainty our union with Spirit. To know that there is only one life, and I am of that. In every given moment that we are able to remember that, regardless of what's going on or what appears to be going on, it's a glorious moment. It's a good day. It is the knowing that the perfect law is now working for me. It is working in me, and it is working through me. Carl Jung once wrote, "I have treated many hundreds of patients. Among those in the second half of life, that is to say, over 35, there has not been one whose problem in the last resort was not that of finding a spiritual outlook on life." Now I'm going to go back to the middle for just a moment because I do beg to differ that 35 is the middle of life. That's my youngest child's age. And I can remember at the age of 50 when we were celebrating, thinking to myself, well, I'm halfway through life now. How I came up with that, I'm not quite certain, because it was followed by my next thought, oh, wait a minute. When I was a child, I claimed that 120 would be the age I would live to, so 50 isn't half of that. I have 10 more years before I celebrate the halfway point. So maybe like me, you're going, 35? What are you talking about? And that's a good thing. That means that we are fully engaged and loving life. But let's look a little deeper at what he's really saying, because that wasn't his point. That was just my first takeaway. Of course.
Went down a rabbit hole there.
Uh-huh. So think of what he's saying. He's saying that as what he's calling the last resort, and I think that's actually a place in Daytona somewhere. But that's not what he's meaning. At the last resort and looking for your spiritual outlook. For me, that is looking for what already is. It's rather like a dog chasing its tail, chasing after that which you already have, searching for that which has always been right where you are. And so that's creating a struggle where there is indeed peace. And that is always true regardless of what we're experiencing. Peace is right there with us too. And are we looking at the peace, or are we looking at the struggle? It is a choice, but in every moment, in each and every opportunity, we have the opportunity to engage Spirit to the fullest in our lives, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, and no matter what's going on around us. Although, I will say, it can pull us off to the side, can't it? It can pull us right off track. Spirit is always fully available and always working for us by working through us. So let's also remember another Ernest Holmes quote, "Spirit can only do for us what it can do through us." So I see these two working together, the idea that Spirit works for me as it works through me only as I get out of the way and allow it. Can it do its good work? It is always flowing, so it will be doing something, maybe you've noticed. But it's for us to get out of our own way, to stop chasing our tail, and to believe with all our heart and all our mind that we are deserving of all the good, and then claim it. It's for us to show up, geared up, and ready to go.
I love that idea of Jung talking about finding a spiritual outlook. And I came to the conclusion, or the idea, I thought about that for a while and pondered on it for a while, and realized that a spiritual outlook on life is an inner feeling. It's not an influence received from the outside. We don't look around us and then get an outlook. We have a feeling within us, and we project that into the world to create the world that we wish to experience. So therefore, an outlook comes from within. Interesting concept, isn't it? Carl Jung also said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Awakens to a new outlook. Isn't that true? Raymond Charles Barker also says there's a divine something in you which at any time you can channel and direct. If you don't have an outlook on life, how are you going to know what that is that you can actually channel and direct? What is yours to do? God doesn't just flow through us. We are co-creators in the process. We find a spiritual truth and we let it manifest into our experience. We are each individualized expressions of source energy, or God, flowing through us into the world in unique and beautiful ways. We are co-creators. We are not doing it on our own, and neither is God.
I love that idea that there's something divine within us and we can direct it. We direct it through our own thoughts. And as Mark said previously, not every thought do we capture and make a home for, but that outlook is created from that within. So the first most valuable tool that we can use is to understand God as love and law, and then use all our resources. Use our strength by using all the resources that we have available. It's an adorable story about a young girl and her father who were out hiking, and they were walking along the forest path, and they came upon a great big branch that was down across their path, and the little girl actually got kind of excited about it and said, "Daddy, do you think if I try really hard that I could move it by myself?" And he said, "Well, I'm sure you can move it if you use all your strength." And so she galloped over to the branch and she began to lift. And she was lifting on that branch. She couldn't move it very much. A little wiggle, a little shake of the leaves, but she couldn't move it off the path. And so she turned around and put her hand on her waist and she said, "Daddy, you were absolutely wrong. I can't move it." And he looked at her and he said, "Well, I invite you to try again, but this time, try with all your strength." And she said, "Okay." So she went over, and this time she decided she'd push on that branch. So she started pushing and pushing, and she could make it bend a little bit, but she could not get it off the path. So she turned to him once again and she said, "Dad, this is really frustrating, and I cannot move this branch." And he said to her, "Well, sweetheart, you have not used all your strengths." And she said, "What do you mean I haven't used all my strengths?" And he said, "You didn't ask for my help." And so she smiled, and together they moved that branch out of the way. So what about you? Are you attempting to move a branch out of your way, out of your path? Do you ever feel disappointed like the little girl did, or frustrated or stressed? Our real strength lies in the use of all our resources, all the resources that are available to us. And some of them we may not recognize until we go within to that divine spark David talked about. We will remain in the struggle, and it's difficult sometimes to see the availability of the resources. But when we go to that place and we quiet our thought and we make way for the omnipresence of a perfect spirit whose flow is absolutely perfect, new ideas come to light. They reveal for us as they reveal through us. And this I absolutely know. The universe makes itself known to those who listen. We must take the time to listen and not be bullheaded and think that we've got this all alone. We are a unity. And this I also know, at least for myself, it does its best work by means of me when I make way for its flow, its perfect flow.
It's kind of funny, I was thinking as she was talking, I was thinking about how we talked last week about omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. And she said omnipresent. And I'm thinking, wow, the story was talking about omnipotence, wasn't it? And the idea that the girl had at her power, they had her resource as a resource at her disposal, the entire power of the universe, and she was trying to do it on her own. And so he said the power of God is omnipresent, and I'm thinking that it's also omnipotent. It's all powerful at the same time. So that's kind of, we were thinking
It's
the same
all
way.
it is.
Yes, and if only she'd known that, if she'd been omniscient, she'd have known that. The truth is, we are never on our own, although we may think we are. Rumi says, the flute is totally empty. It is the breath that flows through, that sings and dances. To be emptiness is not emptiness. He's talking about being an instrument and letting Spirit do its work through us and as us. We express the keys and direct the energy. We are the co-creators with Spirit, which is the breath flowing through us. In Latin, the word spiritus for spirit actually means breath. It's the breath of God, which is the breath of Spirit that animates us and breathes through us, expressing as us into the world. We do this thing together. Ernest Holmes says, peace fills my heart and love sings through me in radiant ecstasy. I love that. I like feeling in ecstasy. Peace fills my heart and life sings through me in radiant ecstasy. He also says, within us is the unborn possibility of limitless experience. Ours is the privilege of giving birth to it. So we are co-creators with the divine. We are never doing it on our own. We are always creating with divine energy.
I love that idea also of radiant ecstasy. I bet we all do, don't we? That's the place we want to sit all the time and experience all the time. We speak a lot in this teaching about the law, and I think that for me it's the thing that I fell in love with this teaching, because I was pretty well versed on the love of God, but learning about the law is fascinating and it's life-changing. And so falling in love with the idea of love and law in balance is what makes it life-changing. Love has an equal role in this thing called life. Life is the loving kindness. It is the self-givingness of itself to all of life. As David said, we aren't in this together. We are in this together. We experience this love as harmony, as peace, joy, freedom, and wisdom. Are each of our own personal experiences of highs, as I like to call it, of love do vary, but the result within is radiant ecstasy. So what is it for you that helps you feel connected in the flow of love? What ideas move you to that place? And do you absolutely realize and live in realization that God loves you? That God loves you so much that all your dreams and your goals are already a reality in the mind of God. Whatever it is that you could possibly desire in your life already is a reality in the mind of God, the mind of all that is. We make way for God's love to flow through us as we remove the branches or move the branches from our path. So think about a baby or a toddler. They think the whole world is theirs. They just reach out and take whatever they want. Now, I'm not suggesting that we follow that pattern, but I am suggesting that there's a balance between their behaviors and the disappointment, frustration, stress, give it whatever name that you want to or do. And there's a huge gray area between those where we are able to find the balance. And we can, as we find that balance, we can move the branches out of our way. And that makes a lot of sense. To find the balance within, the space within. And that does mean going into the quiet. Ernest Holmes says, love is within us. It cannot be destroyed. It can be ignored. To the extent that we abandon love, we will feel as though it has abandoned us.
Ernest Holmes says you cannot keep from attracting into your experience that which corresponds to the sum total of your states of consciousness. It is like the law of reflection. The reflection corresponds to the image held before a mirror. Your life is a mirror peopled with the forms of your own acceptance. Kind of a deep thought, but we actually put out into the universe that which we wish to experience, and then we see it around us and experience it around us. So we actually flows through us so that we can actually get to experience it. There's a scientific theory known as the holographic universe theory, and it's kind of twisty and challenging, and so I'll promise you I'll only talk about it for a little bit of time. But it claims that our physical world is nothing more than a detailed illusion. We're living in a simulated reality, and that reality is prescribed by our own thoughts and beliefs. So it's like you have created a movie, and you have the entire movie script and the screenplay and all the pictures, the picture board of what's going to happen in the scenes and so on. In your mind, you're actually projecting them out into the world and seeing it being played out. At the level, it all starts at the level of emotion and feeling. That's why I was pretty shocked when Mark started talking about that this morning, and I thought, holy moly, that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about. And I thought, I should be saying, holy Mark, that's exactly what I'm talking about. How did you know? It starts at the level of feelings and emotions. We think of the law as manifesting in physical form. We feel like we put energy into the universe, and the universe, like that mirror idea, responds back to us, and we receive the impression of our thoughts. But spiritual activity moves through us at a more subtle level, at the level of feelings and emotions, and it happens automatically because that's where our beliefs reside. That's where the initiating process shifts into manifestation, where we hold a belief and the universe responds, universal energy responds and brings things into manifestation. There's nothing more internal and individual to us than our emotions and feelings. We would say there's nowhere to observe our feelings but inside. But as I've just said, actually the conditions we create on the outer are valid evidence of our inner beliefs, emotions, and feelings. What we think about, we are able to see in our surroundings. That's what the holographic experience is all about. That's what it's revealing. We create the mold, we create the space, and the law fills it in. We outline and spirit fills in the colors. We open the channel and love flows through. What we think about, we bring about, and let both positive and negative thought patterns flow into our existence through us. It's our duty, our personal duty, and our civic duty to mankind and the world to hold in consciousness only that which we wish to experience, both individually and collectively, because whatever energy we hold for ourselves flows through us out into all humanity.
Powerful responsibility. So how do you know when you are in the flow, and especially when you're in the positive flow of life? I have 3 answers to that. My first one is that in truth you always are, so there is no choice. Life is a unity, always evolving. My second idea is you just know. There's a feeling of change when we move from the negative feelings to the positive feelings. And David used the word automatic, and I'll add to that natural. It feels natural. And my third idea for specific response, each one would probably have to do for themselves because it's very specific and to how you feel. And for me, I feel happy, I feel at ease. I feel as though life is working for me. And I might even say, I'm in the flow. We hear this being said sometimes, I'm in the flow. That's that radiant ecstasy. So let's look at the idea that while we can't always stop, while we can't actually stop the flow, we can stop the experiences of goodness. Anybody ever gotten in their own way and stopped the flow in a way that it didn't look the way you had intended? So think of a conductor leading a symphony, and their hands continue to move. They don't stop. They keep that flow of life moving until they don't. And that's what we do. We take this flow of life, we treat, we're meditating, we've got these great habits going on, and life is feeling great, and then something happens and we shut down, we stop it. We don't have to do that. We can practice catching those moments and conducting in a different way. And it's called balancing. We must plant the seed, but then we must give up the need to control. And notice that I didn't say we must give up control, although that is true. But we must give up the need to control. I know for myself, there have been times in my life where I've done the treatment and I've given up the control and I've released it to the law and I know it's done, and then I go and talk about it. And I talk about it and I tell people about it. So that need, the thoughts, the ideas are still vibrating with me. So will that treatment work the way that I thought or said I wanted it to? Probably not. Because I got in the way by not being willing to give up my need to control the situation. After the seed is planted, we don't just release control, we must give up the inner need to control. And we can do this in lots of ways. One of them is to turn our attention to seeing what happens next. So our story to others becomes telling them what we're seeing, or the direction our life is headed in, or we don't even need to. We released it, we know it's done, In the law of mind, it already is done. And so we just go about our way, living life in that radiant ecstasy and knowing that we will step into that. We also need to be guided by our intuition and trust the nudges that we get within. Do you ever receive a message within and you're like, oh no, that's not what I'm gonna do? I know I have. And it's like, I can hear God laughing at me. Really? You were asking for an answer. I gave you one and you said no. Yep. The conductor stopped the goodness. Or the co-conductor stopped the goodness. God is the eternal conductor, and each of us an instrument in this eternal symphony. So keep your music flowing by realizing the universe is working for you.
So I'm going to improvise here a little bit because I was thinking, should I do this or should I not do it? But you know, Deborah said several things about listening to the voice of intuition and stuff like that going on, and the conductor and things, and I'm thinking, you know, I really can relate to it. And because as a conductor, you actually have the music. I have the music right here on a piece of paper with all the dots and the notes and the information on there. And you're looking at the dots and you're getting everybody to follow where those dots are going. But really what you're doing is listening to the music and letting the music lead. So the conductor is actually leading where the music is going so that everybody knows is in a unified energy where is happening, what's happening, where things are going to go. And you find that if you're conducting according to the notes on the page, it's very mechanical. If you're conducting according to the inner picture, the idea that's going on within, all of a sudden things flow so beautifully and so amazingly. The dots on the page are irrelevant. The words, the form, the structures are irrelevant because there's something more beautiful and more powerful flowing through. This happens to me quite often when I'm playing meditation music. And I'm thinking, well, I'm in a C chord right now and an E flat chord, so that's kind of funky. But I'm thinking, don't think it, just do it. And I do it, and it's like, wow, that was kind of cool. I like that progression. And I'm going along and I'm playing and I'm listening to what Deborah's saying. I'm thinking where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do. And as soon as I stop thinking about what I'm going to do, and all of a sudden my fingers go here. Well, I don't know how that happened, but oh my gosh, that was amazing. Sometimes listening to the voice within, listening to intuition, listening to what is flowing through us, allows us to picture and manifest something ever so much beautiful because I'm not doing it on my own. I'm co-creating.
So another quote from Ernest Holmes, a pretty powerful one with lots of messages in it. New thought has valued and timeless concepts and principles, which when developed in generation after generation can serve all of humanity in working toward a future world that works for everyone. I love the idea that it passes on generation to generation, that these principles are timeless, and that as we live our lives out in the world, each one of us, we share all this goodness. So together here, we have created a beloved community filled with unique people and beautiful people. We've created a diversity in unity. And as we close today, I would like for us to affirm the words of our talk together. I want to push the button. By using the word me, you, and us, and saying this as a prayer together. Here we go.
The universe works for me by working through me. The universe works for you by working through you. The universe works for us by working through us.
And so it is.